After 3 days of holding back, Peter finally shows who he truly is. A psychopathic monster with no regards to anyone's safety and privacy, who has been the one breaking into YN's apartment and who finally gives in to his evil urges, killing one of the characters YN is involved with. Hi folks, I'm R, your narrator, and welcome to your Boyfriend Day 3. If you have any game or video suggestions, make sure to send them to me on my Twitter or subreddit. Keep in mind that this video will have spoilers of all the installments, and with that in mind, let's begin. The protagonist of the game, popularly known as YN, gets approached by the creepy Peter, who, despite being a massive walking red flag, somehow manages to charm our protagonist. Unfortunately, I gave the protagonist my own name, which I heavily regret after reading what the dialogue is all about in the third day. Come here. Let's just all forget that this video ever happened and never talk about it. The protagonist, who is barely managing to pay the bills, is also clinged onto by her deadbeat roommate who has no filters. She never keeps a job, spends her money on recreational substances, and fails to pay her share of rent, depending on the protagonist, all the time. Despite being understandably frustrated and annoyed with the roommate, the protagonist, being a caring and kind person, still cares for the roommate, who is named Lucy, giving her many chances to redeem herself. Working in a diner, getting minimum paid salary, YN never gets to do anything and spend time for her hobbies or pleasure when she gets approached by a creepy dude who doesn't want to give out his name, but we by chance guess it to be Peter, which strangely puts him on guard. Regardless, YN and Peter date each other for a few days, with YN feeling as if she's being watched when she goes to bed, yet dismissing it as if it's just paranoia and the stress of life and work, being someone who moved as she couldn't cope being home anymore due to familial issues. That's until the second day of knowing Peter, when she gets home one late night after meeting her co-worker TK, who cares about her, when she gets attacked by a figure shrouded in shadows and darkness. She feels a moist cloth pressed against her lips and nose, sensing as if it might be chloroform, when all of a sudden she awakens the next day, panicking, barely catching her breath, when she looks around shocked, not knowing if what happened that night before was just a bad dream or her new boyfriend Peter, as she remembers hearing his voice. As she gets ready to go to work, shaking this fear off, yet still contemplating if it was Peter or not, she gets startled by someone banging on the door. As she worriedly goes to the door, unsure who it could be, she is relieved that it's the landlord, Dunn, giving her a list of tasks to do, as she agreed to help around the apartment complex for some extra cash, with the landlord appreciating her as a hard worker. After finishing up the tasks, she goes to work, where she comes to a surprising sight of the diner being very empty. The diner is never empty, it's filled with people, she says to herself before catching a glimpse of TK, whom she goes to inquisitively. TK explains how he texted YN to tell her that there's no work today as the diner was broken in last night, with all the cooking equipment being busted. Just then, a distressed holler is heard from the kitchen, with a police officer rushing out, visibly stressed as if he's seen a dead person, making a few calls on his radio and evacuating the diner. When YN asks the officer what's happened, he explains that, indeed, he saw a dead person being stashed in the kitchen. Horrified to what could have happened and who might have done it, TK and YN take their conversation outside when they get interrupted by Peter. Peter, as usual, in his weird self, saying something so bizarre that he would be furious if they tried to pin the murder on YN, as if he knows who's done it. YN being a little held back, thinking, what the hell? She tries to clarify what happened last night, asking Peter to go with her somewhere more private when they leave TK to go to the back alley and speak. Knowing Peter could actually be dangerous, yet unsure if it was Peter or not, she doesn't talk to TK about anything that happened to her, just to make sure what happened was not just a bad dream to discredit Peter. And just in case if Peter is really dangerous, it would be better to talk to TK in private, away from Peter. Just to be clear, there is only one ending in Day 3, but there are a few variations of how you get to it based on your choice in dialogue. In the back alley, YN confronts Peter about the night before, interrogating him on why he did what he did last night, knocking her out. At first, Peter refuses to be honest and denies it all, but when YN keeps on pushing, Peter breaks and admits to carrying chloroform and knocking her out. This horrifying revelation starts crushing YN's world when Peter slowly becomes more confident and unveils his true nature on what a selfish psychopathic monster he truly is. He goes on a monologue about his darkest and deepest fantasies, which honestly makes my own skin crawl, having my name attached to the protagonist. Peter, with a dark and menacing grin on his face, displays his instinctual urges on how he has been in fact stuck in YN and breaking into her room at night, watching her sleep and even sleeping on the bed with her. It's strange how YN wouldn't wake up in the presence of Peter, but it seems as if every night he's been drugging her in order to snuggle with her and watch her sleep. That explains why she feels really groggy and tired every morning she wakes up, at times being late to work. Peter has the audacity calling it being honest with her, and how trust only starts from honesty, perceiving himself as an honest person. At this point, I personally feel really sick and go on the settings to see if I can anyhow change the name of the protagonist back to YN, because I can't see my name on the dialogue box anymore, but unfortunately it doesn't seem to allow me to do that. Peter, revealing he's been planning meeting with YN since the very beginning, starts having a darker and more sinister expression when I can't stand for it anymore and choose the option for YN to run for her life, as Peter is one crazy Just as YN tries to run, Peter quickly holds tightly to her neck and smashes her head against the concrete wall, which makes YN collapse and become semi-lucid, with the last thing hearing before losing her consciousness being that he's taking her home, calling her darling. I said it since day one, and by that I mean the very first installment, that Peter is one big red flag walking. But so many people online were doing fan arts of him and saying how cool and charming he is. And I know fan arts can be of anyone, even the most vile villains. But even YN was dismissing a lot of the red flags, which was honestly infuriating. Folks, when someone like Peter randomly comes up to you and introduces himself as your boyfriend without even saying his name, you know you're not talking to a mentally stable person. These are signs of being a control freak and a manipulator, who not only imagines these things or has a fantasy, but goes so far as claiming himself to be as such, not caring about what the counterpart thinks or says. There's one thing not caring about what people think or say about you, and another not caring about the consequences of your actions and the things that you actually say. This is one way Day 3 ends, with YN losing her consciousness and being taken to Peter's house, which we will only know more about in the next day when she wakes up. The second variation to get the same ending is through choosing a different dialogue option in the back alley. Choosing the option with YN calling Peter insane or telling him to slow down. Instead of running away, Peter goes on another crazy monologue about how he is madly in lust with YN. Being disgusted with Peter and rightfully terrified, YN plays it cool, knowing Peter could be capable of so much more, and the best way to stay safe is to play along with his crazy behavior. Peter seems so deeply infatuated with her that doesn't want to let her go, but she convinces him that they can get back to this conversation later in the evening, with a twisted Peter, of course, displaying more of his sick mind. YN, at least for now, is released to instantly goes to TK to get some refuge from the horrifying revelation that her new boyfriend is a psychopath. But he stays close, watching her, which makes her bite her tongue and not reveal to TK what she just experienced. Despite the weird encounter and Peter clearly being out of his mind, YN still thinks to herself that this encounter was a little exciting, as if she has a darker part of herself. Yet, this could be just the rush of the moment, and of course this is not a healthy way of being with someone, as they are unpredictable and could be very dangerous. And of course, it's soon revealed. Dangerous Peter truly is. As YN talks to TK about who the murder victim in the kitchen could be, she has a sudden realization that Lucy wasn't home last night, causing her to sprint to the kitchen without a second thought. Just as she slowly and reluctantly, with huge concern and tears forming in her eyes, she finds out that the victim to be the landlord, Don, who was nice enough to her to offer her a job. Horrified to discover this, with Dawn being in an unlikely place, yet someone she knows, a horrifying theory and thought crosses her mind that maybe, just maybe, Peter could have been somehow involved, clearly showing how he doesn't like Dawn, as a feeling emasculated by him. After the intense encounter with Peter and the shocking sight of Dawn's corpse, TK walks YN home to catch a break and rest. TK clearly having feelings for YN. YN tries to stay close to them as friends, trying to make up for the times that she blew him off. She needs a strong group of support now as well, being under so much pressure and having come to contact with a psychopath such as Peter and witnessing her landlord's corpse. In the apartment, she sees Lucy and Peter waiting for her. Lucy goes to comfort her, but a possessive and controlling Peter nudges Lucy, creating some distance between them, being very rude to her. All of a sudden, Peter starts picking on Lucy, calling her a dead weight, and how she is useless and a burden, going off on her and calling her names, and all that, because she displays sympathy for their landlord who just lost his life, as if her showing sympathy makes Peter somehow feel bad. I personally feel bad for Lucy despite her shortcomings and defend her, which after a short while she bids YN goodbye, wanting to go somewhere, which unfortunately gives Peter the perfect opportunity to ask YN to go home with him so he can show his place to her. Despite more and more red flags, with Peter being the prime suspect for Don's murder, YN acts very stupid, and I can't describe it any other way, accepting his proposal to go with him. Bruh. Walking out, she is presented with a white van in a very bad condition, being the perfect example of a person you should keep far, far away from. I mean, Peter could not be any more of a red flag. At this point, it's just a meme. As Peter opens the van's door for YN, he explains how it's 3 hours of a drive to get to his place, when she suddenly gets a bad feeling and starts being sensible, deciding to jump out of the van. But it's already too late when Peter hits her so hard that she gets knocked out, with the faint voice of Peter echoing that he's taking her home. So, this is the second way of getting the ending, which all seem to lead to the same ending where Peter takes YN home after knocking her out. Finally, the third ending occurs when YN gets inside the van and agrees to go with him. Inside the van seems decently taken care of, despite how horribly the outside and the body looks. As they drive over a speed bump, the dashboard, which barely holds shut, randomly opens, revealing there to be a blood-stained knife. As YN in a horrified tone and shakily asks Peter what that's for, he implies on how he was the one who killed Don when he knocks her out, saying how it would be easier seeing how scared YN has become. I'm sorry, but YN must be one of the silliest characters ever. Literally seeing the red flag and saying, yes please, I want that. Anyway, we all know what's to follow here. Think of how crazy Peter has been outside and in YN's environment. Just imagine how much more aggressive he will be in his own house, or in other words, the most comfortable place for him. At this point, YN is probably dead. There is no more hope for her. Also, there seems to be a variation where Lucy could be the one dying instead of Don if the dialogue option chosen are different. I said in some other playthroughs that Lucy could be the victim, so I don't know how each character will play in the lore of the game. And that is it for this video, folks. If you enjoyed it, make sure to stay tuned by hitting on the subscribe button and the notification bell. It's been R, your host. Thanks for being here, and I will see you on the next one. Have a fantastic day.